Good morning, everyone. We're here to talk about identifying and targeting our customers. We will be starting in just about a minute, so sit back and relax, and we'll get started shortly. Okay, it is noon, so we'll go ahead and get started. Just a couple of things to tell you. Everyone is in mute. We will keep everything in mute so that we can hear the speaker very, very clearly without any interruptions, dogs barking in the background and such. If you have questions, we want you to type them into the question pod that you'll see in your webinar screen. And then we'll read the questions out whenever Lindsay has a break in her presentation so that everyone can hear both the question and the answer. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Today's presenter is Lindsay Wilcox, and Lindsay brings 2 decades of communications experience to the Farmers Market Federation of New York in her role as marketing advisor. She is the owner and founder of Centermost Marketing, which is a boutique firm in central New York with a specialized focus on agriculture. She recently concluded work on a 2-year USDA FMPP grant and currently manages the marketing for a countywide Open Farm Day and Buy Local campaign. Prior to founding Centermost, Lindsay was the creative director at iHeartMedia in Syracuse. Her first interaction with the Federation was in 2007 when she helped develop and launch the brand for the statewide EBT or SNAP program, and that's still in use today. And other Federation-related projects include the creation of our website, snaptomarket.com, public relations for initiatives such as winter markets, and speaking at multiple events and hosting webinars for FMM Pro. Lindsay is an award-winning marketer and creative professional with recent honors in 2019 from Graphic Design USA. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay.
Well, thank you so much, Diane. And I am so excited to be kicking off this series of webinars. My goal is to get through my slides by about 1 o'clock, 1:15 at the latest, and that way we'll have time for some questions and discussion. So here we go. So first, I'm not going to read through this list of collaborators, but I do want to mention that this webinar and the toolkit that was produced from it were the work of many people and organizations. But we want to specifically point out Northeast SARE for their support and funding of this project. So let's start at the beginning and go over how this project came to be. So as you know from the title of this, we're trying to reverse the downward trend at markets, which I'm sure many of you tuning in today have experienced in the last few years. But this all started back in 2017 and 2018 when the Farmers Market Federation was hearing from vendors and market managers that there's a major drop in attendance. Other markets nationwide were also seeing these same issues, and the question was why? So together with Cornell Cooperative Extension, markets in Vermont, Western Massachusetts, and Maryland, we created a consumer survey with a goal to learn what exactly consumers were feeling about local food and shopping at markets. So ultimately, the result was a grant from Northeast SARE, and they were able to fund a consumer survey. So as I mentioned, this is a multi-state effort. It involves multiple markets, multiple experts, and we had pretty ambitious goals when we set out. The goal was to get 500 responses to the consumer survey per state. But as you can see, we got well over 3,800 responses, so that was wonderful. And it was really important that we had a broad range of consumer demographics that we heard from. So we weren't just hearing from people that love farmers markets. We wanted to hear from people that were ambivalent or maybe didn't even shop at markets at all. So we divided the data into 3 categories, as you can see here. And this is important to note because this shapes not only the survey, but the toolkit and what we're going to talk about today. So I know many of you that have been following this project since 2018 are anxious to find out what was revealed from that survey. So there are 10 key insights, and these will all be addressed in forthcoming webinars. But I do want to go over some of these in detail with you. So the first thing is that local food is valued by all 3 consumer groups, both people that shop at the market all the time and those that don't go at all. So that was interesting. Local food is on people's minds, but they aren't agreeing on where the best place is to acquire that local food. Another thing that we found was that convenience is king for shoppers, especially to those who are casual farmers market shoppers and those that don't go at all. They have this dream that they want a shopping venue that will fit right into their schedule, something that's open 24/7, and we all know that that's not possible for farmers markets, but we will talk about some strategies for getting around that. Actually, that'll be covered in future webinars. Number 3 is that consumers really want to feel important. They want to be treated to the customer service that they could find at any major retailer. So that's a big request, but that's what they are wanting. Pricing is an issue, as you can see in 4 and 5. The first thing is that we all know the perception that farmers markets are more expensive. We also know that that's not always true, especially when we're in the heart of certain seasons. But that is the perception, and that is among all 3 consumer demographic groups. Number 5, customers do not want to mess around and guess or ask what the pricing is. It should be clearly displayed, and again, that was mentioned across all consumer groups. Consumers want choices. They want a diversity of items and vendors, which I realize is tough for a lot of smaller markets. But again, these are just things that may be keeping people away from the markets. So it's just important to know this is how consumers feel. So this is interesting. A lot of us feel very passionately that the relationship between farmer and consumer is important and gratifying, but that's not always the case. Some shoppers actually find it intimidating to shop directly with the farmer. So that's a really interesting insight. I know a lot of us have, myself personally, have worked on campaigns that emphasize how rewarding it is to know your farmer. The eighth insight is, it kind of ties into that, is that many are intimidated by farmers. They just don't, they're afraid of appearing stupid or uneducated if they don't know about a certain product. And again, this ties back into number 5, that they don't like having to ask farmers for pricing or what an item is. So if you can add pricing and the name of an item, that's going to be great. Last 2 key insights before we get into today's topic is people really expect farmers markets to be at the forefront of environmental stewardship. So adapting eco-friendly behavior. So no plastic bags, which we all know is going to be in effect here in New York soon. But they get turned off if they see something that isn't fitting that ideal at the market. And last but not least, this kind of ties into number 3, but customers really want to feel like a VIP and that they're going to have a great visit at your market. So if you are feeling like this is overwhelming, we hope these webinars and the toolkit that goes with the survey will give you some ideas to overcome these issues at your own market. So now we're going to get into today's topic. So adapting markets to meet consumer needs. So how can we do that? Today we're going to talk about marketing, but just to give you a sneak peek of what is ahead, the toolkit and the webinars are focused on content that we have broken down into 17 different modules in 4 focus areas. So I will be giving today's webinar and then a webinar next Friday on marketing. Diane and Laura will be following up with webinars on programs and services, enhancing the experience at the market and the farmers market perspective. So the webinars and the toolkits, we want to make sure this is clear. It's not a step-by-step guide to running a market. All of you already know, you're successfully running markets. The goal is to give you ideas, insights, and some case studies that you can emulate at your own market. So here's what we're going to cover today. Oops, sorry. We're going to talk about finding your customer base. So who is shopping at your market and who isn't shopping at your market. Then we're going to talk about what messages will resonate with those customers. And finally, some actual marketing mediums you can use, such as social media or signage, to reach your target audience. So the first section is on finding your customer base. So without getting too negative, it's, the whole goal and premise of this project was to figure out why customer participation at markets was declining. So the situation right now is hopefully that your goal is to increase that customer traffic. And if that is, the best place to start is with an analysis of your current customer makeup, as well as finding out who is not shopping with you. So that's going to involve 2 things, surveys and demographic research. I want to point out here, even if your market is bustling and busy, and yes, we're very jealous of you if that's the case, if you even are seeing an uptick in traffic, it's still really, really important to focus on marketing to your customers. And there's a statistic I want to share that was in a Harvard Business Journal article, that if you can increase your customer retention rates by just 5%, you can see up to 25 to 95% higher profits. So just a side note that you want to focus on keeping your current customers happy. But we need to find out who they are so we can market to them effectively. So as I said, the 2 solutions here are surveying and demographic research. So let's start with surveying. We'll get into the specifics of how to launch your survey and where to launch it, but let's talk first about what is in your survey. The toolkit is going to have exact wording that we would recommend if you're going to do a customer survey. For this one question, as you can see here, how often did you shop at your market, whatever your market is this year? And then there are specific answers. And the reason that we want you to do this is so that you can use a lot of the suggestions and insights from the toolkit, because it will match exactly. So that's really important. We wanted to point that out first. So when you do your survey, obviously you're not going to just ask this question, but by asking this question, you'll be able to find out what categories your customers fit into. Once you know who your flag bearing shoppers are and why they're continuing to shop with you, you can start targeting people in your area who have similar characteristics than them. When you find out your casual shoppers, these are people that aren't coming to the market. They may come here or there, but they're not coming every week. So once you know who they are, you can try and increase the amount of times they're coming to the market. You'll also learn maybe if they used to shop, they maybe used to shop all the time. Why are they not coming as often? And then finally, your non-market shoppers, these are people that aren't at your market. We'll talk about ways to survey them since they aren't at your market, but we want to know why they're not coming. And I want to point out something here that often goes unsaid. Sometimes by simply doing a survey in your community, you are educating consumers that there is a farmer's market. One of the insights we didn't cover, but it is covered in the toolkit, is that many people weren't even aware when they took the SARE survey, they didn't even know that there was a market in their area. So it's important to look at surveying itself as a form of marketing. So here's something else you'll want in your survey. You'll want to collect demographic info so you can figure out who is coming to your market, who's not, etc. My rule of thumb is always don't ask for what you don't plan to use. So if gender isn't going to factor into your market, or excuse me, your marketing, don't ask. You know, religion, does that matter? Again, that may, depending on your market, if you serve a certain religious group that follows dietary guidelines, yes, maybe you'd want to ask. But when it comes to, you know, your more specific demographic questions, you might want to make them optional or not ask them at all. When you ask about age, you want to divide into segments. So you don't want to you know, make life easy on yourself by giving kind of ranges. You want to ask where people live, but you may also want to ask where they work, because if you know that information, maybe you might consider a weekday market if you have a lot of people working in a zip code or an area in town. You might ask about if there are children in the household, because then you could offer specific kids programming. So this is just a sampling of some of the demographic info you might want to collect in your survey. So remember, I suggested that you should ask that question about how often someone is shopping at the market so that you can divide your customers into the three categories: flag bearer, casual shopper, and non-market shopper. Well, one of the goals is to create what's called a flag bearer mirror. So you know who's coming to the market now, and you know who's passionate about the market. Once you can paint a picture of who that is, you can then begin to target your marketing to people that are similar to that flag bearer. So according to the SARE survey, we found that flag bearers tend to be female, about 45 years old, and in medium to high income brackets. But please don't use that as a, I mean, that's just an overall across multiple states, but don't use that as sort of the go-to flag bearer model, because your flag bearer may be different. Let's say you have a robust SNAP program. You may have your flag bearers and best customers may be SNAP beneficiaries who are in a lower income bracket. So while flag bearers are important, you don't only want to focus on getting more of that type of a person to your market. You also want to find out if you can bring other demographic groups into your market. So that's where another tactic comes into play, where you're going to play matchmaker, which is fitting because we have Valentine's Day coming up. So first you'll need to dive deeper into who exactly lives and works near your market. One way to do that is accessing the latest census data. So finding out age, how many children are in households. The census data can reveal that. You can also check with your local chamber of commerce or town hall. A lot of times they'll have public demographic information. Sometimes they'll even have what I call cheat sheets where they break down with some key statistics for you on maybe one page. So they'll do your homework for you. The other thing is just use your own general knowledge. So think about or talk to, if you're newer to the area where your market is, talk to longtime residents. Ask them who lives and works nearby the market. Once you do this, you can align the demographic groups and what they might be looking for in a farmer's market with what your market currently offers. So here's some examples. So perhaps you have a farmer or two that are fluent in Spanish. So if in your demographic research you find that there is a Latino community within your area, you would want to reach out to them because it's going to make shopping is going to be very comfortable for them when they can literally speak the language of the farmer and communicate. So that's a benefit of your market. Now you need to connect it with people in your area. Let's say your market regularly is hosting activities and free events, has live music, let's say. If you have a lot of families in the area with young children, that's going to be, you may want to reach out specifically to them and target them. And finally, perhaps your market is in a park area with, smooth pavement. It's very wheelchair accessible. So maybe you'd want to reach out to senior living communities or organizations that work with those with physical disabilities and reach out and let them know. So it's all about playing matchmaker to figure out maybe some new people you should be targeting. So we've talked about the situation, some solutions, surveying and demographic research. And now I wanted to go back and explain a little bit, how exactly you can go about managing or creating and managing a survey. So the first thing you want to figure out is where your survey is going to live. And for best results, you should aim for an online version. That way it'll be easy to input data. And most online survey software platforms will analyze data for you. So it'll automatically generate graphs and insights. I personally, I've had success with surveymonkey.com. It's often free for up to, and don't quote me on this, at one point it was up to 1,000 responses. So, and if you do want to, even for a little extra, I think it's up to $10 or $20 a month, you can get even more features. But if you want to go for a free option, you can use Google's online forms. However, we all know that you can't just do online outreach. You need to do, in-person outreach at your market. So you're definitely going to need to do a printed version. So you would just print out the questions and then input the data yourself into SurveyMonkey or another software platform. I've even heard of markets using tablets, so iPads, to let people take surveys online right at the market. So you've definitely got options. So what about timing? Well, you don't want, when I've done surveys, when people enter, I greet them and say, when you're done shopping, would you mind stopping by? We could love to ask you a few questions. But getting that on their mind, and that way you're able to kind of ask them twice, because when you see them leave, you can ask them again. You can walk around with a clipboard too, so you don't need to just sit and stay at the entrance. Obviously, the more people you can have surveying, the better. We talked about, you can't forget the non-market shoppers. And just as we did with the SARE survey, it's important to get out into the community and talk to people who are not coming to the market necessarily. So you can head to public events with a clipboard and survey So any fairs, parades, public places like parks, libraries, and ask if people would take a survey. And then if you're doing the online survey, you have your link, you can ask those same community organizations like libraries, maybe schools, community centers, if they'll share the survey with their consumers. Another really powerful thing you can do is to join Facebook groups, and we'll talk about this later as well. Join Facebook groups in your area. So there's a lot of parent groups, or maybe people that like to hike, but different groups, you can ask to join them and then share the link in those groups. So last 2 points, you want to select a time frame. It's usually a good idea to collect data over at least a 2 to 3 week period, because as we all know, market attendance fluctuates week by week. Bad weather could derail results. So even taking your survey out a month, some markets will do it for 2 months, but whatever it is, select a time frame and set a goal of how many responses you want. I will mention in the toolkit, there are some tips on how to make sure you get an adequate sample size. So you can review that in the toolkit and learn how to do that. And last but not least, it's important to sweeten the deal. Our time is valuable. We all know that. So when someone approaches you personally to take a survey, even if you know it's for a good cause, you kind of recoil and think, oh my gosh, I have so much to do. So how can you make it worth someone's time? If you have grant funding, maybe you could purchase some little giveaways, or it could be something as simple as a sticker that, you know, a small bumper sticker or something, any token to make it worth someone's while, or at least to show their appreciation. So I can pause here, Diane, if there's anyone that has any questions so far.
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Okay, super.
The first one is, when you listed out the 10
Yes.
concepts,
Yes.
are those in any kind of a rank order, or is it random?
Those are random, and I'm glad that that question was asked. And again, this is, so there's the SARE toolkit itself, which is about 80 pages of recommendations for those 17 modules. But there's also a 30-page report that analyzes and interprets the survey results. So that will have a really detailed breakdown, and there is some ranking in that. And that is all included, both the report and the toolkit is one download at the Farmers Market Federation website. So I hope that answered their question.
Okay, and I think that was good. Another one is, can you tell us what chapters in the toolkit you're referring to in today's presentation?
Let me see. They go by the same titles. I don't know. I believe they are chapters 2, 4, and 5. But they do have the same titles. So it will be clear if you're looking at the table of contents which chapters they are.
Okay, and what do you think is the best way to reach non-shoppers to fill out your survey?
So the best place would be to stake out by the grocery store, but you would be quickly asked to leave. I think the best way is to just go to those public places that I mentioned. You know, again, if you're in a more urban area where you can walk around near a grocery store, that might be good. You just don't want to go on their property. But just by being out in the general public, you're going to get a good mixture of people that have been to a market and those that haven't. But it is really tough to do. One thing I will say is I did work on a big survey project about 3 years ago. We had success with posting in the Facebook groups with graphics that said, not a fan of farmers markets, tell us why. So you could try doing that to specifically speak to that person that doesn't go to the market. Those are great
Okay.
questions.
And it was also the last question that we have right now.
Okay, super. So time-wise, I'm still thinking we're going to get this wrapped up by, it's probably looking like 1:15, 1:10, because I have 2 more sections to get through. So now we're going to move into mastering marketing messages. So after you've done your research and your surveying, hopefully you're going to have a good idea of who's coming and who's not to your market. And then the next step is to try and tailor what you're saying in your marketing to speak directly to those people that you want at your market. So let's go back to the SARE survey results again. So there's some interesting things going on here. It was found that people are tired of hearing buy local. Now, I know a lot of us I personally work on a buy local campaign, but simply saying buy local over and over, support our economy, those sorts of messages are not really resonating anymore. So we're kind of calling this buy local burnout. Now, remember what I said earlier as well, though, that people do care about local food. So they are motivated to purchase local food, but it's not necessarily to help the economy. So what is it that they're caring about? We'll get into that, but I do want to mention that, and in my next presentation next Friday, we're going to go really deep into this, but it's really challenging right now, and we think the situation that's confusing customers is that they have more opportunities to buy local food than they have before. We all know our groceries, our grocers that I go to Wegmans or Aldi's, and not so much Aldi, but Wegmans, they are really into showing pictures of farms, not local farms necessarily, might be a farm in Pennsylvania. So it's appearing, people are getting that feel good factor and thinking they're buying local, but local, I'm in Syracuse, New York, Pennsylvania is not in our backyard. So there's just a lot of confusion and opportunity for customers to get local food elsewhere. So that, and then, even Target and Walmart that aren't really trying to buy or bring in local products at all, they're mimicking what your market looks like. They're setting up market tents, or their signage looks rustic. So consumers are getting confused. So that's our situation we're dealing with. So now the point is, what messages can we use to make sure that when consumers think local food, they think farmers markets first? So like we said, supporting our local economy, people don't want to hear that right now. They're burnt out on that. But the survey found that messages that say support our local farmers are motivating, especially to flag bearers. So that's something that you might want to keep in mind for your marketing. And keep in mind here that saying support our farmers is different than saying meet our farmers. This is a campaign I worked on in the Catskills, and we created short films kind of giving a very, like a documentary of what a day in the life of a farmer is like. So we wanted to let people get to know who their farmers were in a way that they maybe didn't have to do it. It was a less intimidating way to get to know the farmers, and maybe we thought people might feel like they've had an introduction to be more apt to go to the market, because some people are intimidated by getting to know their farmers. So it's a tricky message, but I think you can appeal to everyone, from the flag bearers who say, yes, I like meeting farmers, to the casual and non-market shoppers that may be a little intimidated. Those casual and non-market shoppers still want to support local farmers. They just aren't necessarily into meeting them face to face Once they get there, they realize they have to, but just or putting that in your marketing that by going to the market, you're supporting farmers is going to have an impact on all three groups. Oh, I'm sorry, I want to go back here. I jumped right into local farmers because I think it's such a, it's interesting that that's such a driver, but I neglected to mention so purchasing fresh food, that is the #1 marketing message that the three groups want to hear, followed by supporting our local farmers. So that is explained in more detail in the report in Toolkit. But yes, so leading with things like the freshest food, farm to table food, that sort of marketing message will really resonate with all groups. So as you plan your 2020 marketing campaigns, keep that lingo in mind. So another thing that you can do with your marketing is to overcome some barriers that are in people's minds about farmers market shopping. And you don't need to do this in a negative way. So it's not about saying markets aren't like this. It's instead saying markets are like this. So you speak in a very positive way. You may not even draw attention to something that's causing people misgivings. You're just focusing on the positives. So one of the barriers, and again, this is just a snapshot. There are a total of I think 5 key barriers that were noted in the survey. So we cover all 5 of those in the toolkit, but I'm going to go over 2 of them now. One barrier that's keeping people away from the market or preventing them from coming often is because they don't find it convenient. They can't get everything at the market. So here are some examples of marketing messaging that could overcome that barrier. So while it's not necessarily one-stop shop, but some people still think that markets only have produce. They do not realize markets have meat, cheese, some have wine, beer, handcrafts. So messaging that says more than fruits and veggies, farmers markets have it all. Granted, we're not going to have, necessarily big bags of flour or other pantry staples, but at least saying that, yeah, you actually might be able to get everything at the market. You may be surprised. Another thing to overcome the barrier is just accepting the fact that while people prefer one-stop shopping, at least they could start at the market and finish at the store. So giving them a way to think about how to tackle their weekly shopping. Another way to overcome the barrier is to not even focus on the fact of shopping and taking convenience out of the equation. So yeah, they may have to go to 2 places to get their groceries, but if you say it's more than a shopping trip, it's social fun for everyone, emphasize some of the happenings at your market, that's going to just take convenience off the table. So another barrier that came up in the survey was that market prices aren't competitive. One of the upcoming webinars will focus heavily on this and how to overcome this with price comparisons and other creative tactics. But as far as messaging that you can use, okay, let's say that your market prices are slightly higher. If you focus on the fact that on value, so that yes, it may be slightly higher, and you don't say that in your marketing, but if you know that, then talk about what comes with the food, and that's taste, freshness, and nutrition worth every penny. So something that's drawing attention to how much value and goodness is in that food. If you know your prices are comparable to nearby grocers, then say that in your marketing. Dare to compare our prices. And finally, shopping seasonal is often what lowers the price slightly. So you can talk about that, in season, within reason, or something else that's catchy. So another thing that you can do is highlight opportunities. So what is unique to the market that people cannot get at a grocery store? So kind of focusing more on, again, the positive here. So many parents out there sort of dread bringing their kids to the grocery store because they grab at everything, and it's just not it can be a hassle. But we all know when you take kids to the market, yes, they still try to grab things, but it's more of an experience. So a parent may feel like, yeah, they're getting some shopping done, but they're also exposing their kids to fresh fruits and vegetables, and they're meeting farmers. Maybe there's a park nearby. So talking about the kid-friendly aspects of your marketing, or your market, may be a great way to go with your marketing. So some messages might say, kids love the market, bring them and see why. Teach your kids to love local like you. So other messaging that you can think of in that vein would be great. Another thing that a market has that the grocery store doesn't is a sense of community. People meet up. It's a communal hub. And yes, we all run into friends and family at the grocery store, but this is different. So using some messaging that highlights that would be effective. So this is a high-level marketing concept that I learned, and it's kind of a mind-blowing moment when I was getting well versed in marketing. It was a former boss of mine that explained this to me. So I hope you find this enlightening. But when you are writing text or advertising for anything marketing wise, you want to speak in benefits and not features. So features are facts. You can't debate them. So, a feature of a tomato would be it's red. It has this much vitamin C. These are not debatable. Benefits, though, relate how those facts can impact a person. So I like to say it's like you're translating the features into benefits. So with a tomato, you might say, brighten up your salad with a red tomato, juicy, flavorful taste that kids love. Depending on who you're speaking to, you might alter benefits. So below is an example for the market. So feature, you can shop with local farmers at the market. You can't debate that. It's a fact. So here's some benefits. Support farmers. They'll support you with great food. Good food for you, a good living for local farmers. Meet, support, and shop with friendly farmers at the market. So these lines are translating and making you're basically doing the homework of the end consumer and telling them how features will make their lives better. So taking this one step further, if you are doing, let's say, a Facebook ad or a print ad, and you want to prove the benefits, you still lead with that benefit line. Here you'll see it says fresher taste. So this was 10 reasons to shop at your farmer's market, and one of them was fresher taste. And this statistic here is a feature. Farmers market produce travels 50 miles max. Grocery store produce travels about 1,500 miles. So this is actually from a study. It's in the toolkit. But as you can see, you lead with the benefit, which is a fresher taste, and then you follow it with facts. So I'll pause here for questions before we get into the last section.
Okay, we do have a few questions.
Great.
Do you think it's worthwhile to conduct a survey comparing our market prices versus the conventional grocery store prices?
So I think it's worth doing comparison shopping or going to the grocery store. or the few, whatever grocers or even other markets or places where people are getting food and compare prices. So I wouldn't necessarily call it a survey, but I, as a market manager, would go and do that. You know, when things are in season, and you can also do it when things aren't in season, just to kind of give you an idea. But yeah, I mean, going to the store, let's say when strawberries come into season, comparing that week's pricing to what your market's pricing is, so that you don't have to keep going back week after week. You can just put in your comparison shopping, put a little asterisk and say pricing valid as of. If you have multiple strawberries at the market, take an average of their prices. So I would, you know what, real quick on that. I wouldn't even I wouldn't necessarily bother with that. If you have done a survey and you find out that pricing is not an issue. So, you know, if you're asking on your survey, do you think our prices are reasonable? Or ask something, or ask what is keeping you from the market, and you don't get that many people saying pricing, don't go there. Don't even bring it up. That's why it's so important to know who you're targeting before you start marketing.
Okay, another person asked, where can they get the toolkit that you keep referring to?
So that you can get at the Farmers Market Federation website, which, Diane, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's nyfarmersmarket.org, right?
.com.
.com. So nyfarmersmarket.com. And it's free. This isn't a
It's
sales
free,
thing.
but you do have to register for it.
Yes, you have to register, and that's just so that Northeast SARE can track the effectiveness of this project. So your information is only being used for that purpose.
Okay, and the last question that I have is, will there be a recording of this presentation available for later?
Yes, and that will also be available at nyfarmersmarket.com. And you just have to register, and then you'll be able to access, listen to this. You know, if you want to play it for your vendors, or you know, listen to it again. And again, this content that you're hearing today is pulled directly from the toolkit that we worked on. So you can also read through the toolkit, listen to the webinar, and feel like you're getting a really well-rounded view of what's happening.
Okay, thank you. That was the last question for now.
All right, so last section. Let me get situated here, okay? So now we're going to talk about reaching the target audience. So we've, so far, just to kind of recap, we talked about finding out who you may want to target, so who's not coming, and who is coming, and who you want to come more often, or just get introduced to the market. We've also talked about things you might say to those demographic groups to entice them to come to the market, so marketing messaging. Well, now we're going to talk about how can we actually reach these people, reach our target audience in an effective way. I will also, on the 21st, February 21st, be talking about, I think I cover 8 or 9 low cost or free marketing methods. So we'll touch on some today, but we'll go in deeper next Friday too. So the situation today is that markets serve a wide range of customers. I mean, we all know that, looking around our markets and seeing the different types of people. Just put a few here. I mean, we'll see families, seniors, military and veterans. I bring that up because there are a lot of incentive programs for veterans and their families. And locally, there may be some for you, such as you know, coupons or vouchers that they can use. So This is just a sampling. You may have, every community is unique. There may be different demographics in Syracuse than there are in Rochester, than there are in Bethesda, Maryland. So you need to find out kind of who you're serving. And this statement kind of encapsulates this, that if your goal is a market for all, don't take a one size fits all to marketing. So it's kind of a paradox, because to get all facets of the community at your market, you do need to kind of separate those different demographics so that you can reach them in a way that feels personal and resonates with them. So this is what's known as targeted marketing. Targeted marketing, another benefit of it is that it is budget friendly. So you are not, let's say you have a ton of, you're near a military base, so you already have a ton of military folks and their families coming, but you don't have a lot of families with young kids coming. So if you're targeting families, you're not wasting money on, you're spending your money efficiently because you're going directly at them. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to do that. And you're also going to hopefully use some of those marketing messages that are going to resonate with them. So you're going to spend your budget in a more effective way. So the SARE toolkit that you can find at nyfarmersmarket.com, I'm going to start saying that now, that has ideas for marketing to 11 different demographic groups, but we're going to cover 5 today, just so I don't talk your ear off for another hour. So let's begin. Oh, sorry. Yeah, before we get into those groups, you can approach targeted marketing in a kind of a 2-step plan. And this is referenced in the toolkit. The first step is you want to retain your current market flag bearers and at least retain your casual customers. Hopefully you will increase their patronage. But as I just did, I got excited talking about the new kinds of people you could bring to your market, and I skipped over, and it wasn't intentional, the fact that you really need to focus on keeping your current customers happy, and you should market to them. Sometimes people will, take their current customers for granted. And as we saw way back in the beginning with those key insights, customers want to feel like VIPs. If you have someone coming to your market and spending $50 to $75 a week or even $100 a week, but you never reach out to them with communication, or you don't really acknowledge them, do you think they're going to keep coming? I mean, some of them might, but some might say, you know what, I'm bringing my money here and I just don't, no one says hi to me, no one's, sends me any newsletters, or I don't even know, they don't care. Maybe I'm going to go to another market, or I'm going to just go to the grocery store. So you want to focus your marketing on retaining current customers and then attracting non-market shoppers in specific demographics. So we talk a lot about, I've been talking about demographics, but all the market managers I know have limited time and limited budget. So asking them to get specific with demographic targeting to their current customers is too much to ask. So when it comes to marketing to current customers, don't worry about demographics. Don't worry about age, where they live, how much they spend, any of that. Just focus on how you can reach them. And I'll explain why. You have what's called a captive audience. They are already coming to your market, so that's a marketer's dream. You can reach them. You know they're going to be at the market, so they're there. You just have to make that connection. And here are some ideas. But before I go into this, just to underscore how important it is to market to them, is that statistic I mentioned earlier, that if you can increase your customer retention rate, so keep keep more people coming back to the market. So if you do have a little turnover, that you reduce that. You can increase the amount of money that your vendors are bringing in by as much as 95%. And that's a big number, but it makes sense. If you aren't losing your current customers, they're going to keep coming, and you're going to be bringing new customers in with step 2. So I'll get off my soapbox about that, but it is really important. So how do you market to your current customers? Email. Email is a great way to do this. You can use, and again, I'll talk about this next week, but you can use, not to be confused with SurveyMonkey, you can use software like MailChimp, which is free, again, for I believe up to 1,500 people. So a lot of markets won't even have a list that big. So you can send out emails saying what's at market and thanking people for coming. So you can collect emails with a sign-up sheet right at the table, at the market manager's table, I should say. When you greet people, you can also, say, hey, would you like to be the first to know about what's in season? Sign up for our email. You can also gather phone numbers so that you can send text messages. There's texting programs out there so that you can send reminders. You could get addresses so you could send direct mail. It's just like surveying, though. Don't ask for contact information you're not going to use. So if you know you're never going to send out postcards, don't collect addresses, because people don't like giving their personal information, especially if you're not going to use it. Same with the text messages. So only ask for information you'll use. Also, ask people when they come in, you could ask them to like your Facebook page, and you could do that right on the spot. If they show you they've liked your market page, you could give them a sticker. And then finally, well, you don't ask for any information for this, but you can use at market signage to promote upcoming events, or to promote your email campaign, or to like your page on Facebook or Instagram. So, I do want to point out here too, the Facebook ad campaign. So a great way to target your Facebook advertising is to show it to, if you do paid Facebook advertising, you can select the audience known as people who like my page. So these are people already following your market, and you can show them ads just for them. So you could show them an ad that says, thank you for being a supporter of our market. This coming Saturday is Customer Appreciation Day. Stop by for free lemonade or something. So these are ways that you can make your customers that are current keep coming back. Another note about Facebook. Facebook is really great overall for targeting, and that's because, I should say Facebook and Instagram, same company, they let you target in such a granular way, it's almost overwhelming. But you can use it, like I just explained, for your current customers, but also to start reaching new customers. And you can do it in a way that's not wasting a single cent. So one example would be, a lot of markets have been trying to promote that they offer meat. A lot of people don't realize that markets offer meat. So this program that we did in the Catskills, we focused on the fact that there is chicken and pork and beef at the markets. So we wanted to get that message out, but I wanted to do it in a way that would really just target meat lovers. So on Facebook, you are actually you can target by location, you can target by interest, age, income level. We focused on interest. So we didn't show the ads to vegans and vegetarians, nothing against them. They don't eat meat. So there's no point in wasting money if we're promoting meat. So Facebook lets you decide who will see your ad and who you can exclude groups. Now, obviously, you'd want to be careful with that. You don't, this is benign. This isn't harming anybody, but you want to make sure you're not excluding in a, in a way that would keep certain people from the market. So in this case, it's fine, but just be careful with that. But yes, you can target who you want and who you don't want to see your ad. So now we're going to get into actual, I promised those 5 demographics that you want to reach. So let's talk about lower income households. And this is really important for those markets that are offering SNAP or FMM, farmers market nutrition checks or whatever program is in your state. And you want to reach these lower income households. So a few ideas for marketing mediums to use. The first one would be thinking about other community organizations as a marketing platform. So that would be the obvious ones like Department of Social Services or Office for the Aging, WIC clinics. But go a step further, food pantries or community organizations, public libraries, even other events in town. So these are places that you could put literature out about your market or posters, or ask them to share posts on Facebook or Instagram. So, think of community partner organizations as your partners in marketing. Low income housing. So there's always most municipalities will have a housing authority. Talk to them and see if they can set out your information in their building. And, maybe they would let you do door hangers or flyers for residents. But I do want to warn you, you can never put anything in anyone's mailbox. I made this mistake when I first started in marketing. And luckily the post office didn't find out, but it's a federal offense. So don't do it. It was news to me at the time. And I'm sure 90% of you know that, but for the 10% that don't, you cannot put anything in or on a mailbox. So if you do anything with WIC moms, I'd strongly suggest striking up a relationship with your local WIC office and talk about having coupons distributed either at the farmer's market or a location near the market that is during WIC clinic hours. So some markets in Western Massachusetts, this is in the toolkit, but it goes into more detail, but they've done this and they found it really successful. WIC helps the farmer's market helps cross-promote the distribution of WIC checks, and customers come shopping directly after picking up their coupons. So it's a win-win for everybody. In a previous project, I actually went in and gave a PowerPoint presentation to the WIC staff. They were really on board with trying to get WIC moms to, step over to the market. And the staff at the WIC clinic was really excited and they felt empowered knowing some of the facts about the farmers market because they could share that with their clients. Second audience we'll talk about, and again, these are generalized. Maybe seniors in your area are different, but these are just some general insights into some of the marketing tactics you could use. So I should actually go back. Let me check my notes. I'll give you the exact statistic about seniors and Facebook. Just one second. Because there's sometimes people like to say, oh, seniors aren't on Facebook or they don't use social media, but that's just not true. I believe it is 68%. Yes. 68% of those 50 and older are on Facebook. And I think and I believe it's even for those in their 70s. It's one of the fastest growing demographic groups that are using social media are seniors. But for the most part, seniors are still using newspapers, radio, and TV. And if you're saying to yourself, there's no way I can afford radio. I worked in radio for 5 years, and there's something called an adlet, which is, depending on the station, it could be 5 seconds or 10 seconds. And that is a lot of time to get the name of your market out. So you can afford radio, and you should look into it. Some radio stations will even potentially run free ads because it's community organization. So that's always a possibility. So something you could say in 10 seconds would be, seniors, use your FMMP checks at the Main Street Market, open Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. through October. So you can say a lot. TV can get pricey, but it's worth mentioning. Other things you could do would be partnering up with senior living centers. Maybe they would want to actually bring seniors to your market, or at the very least, they'd let you set out flyers and posters. Just like I mentioned about the WIC presentation, you could ask if you could go into the senior center and give a presentation on your market, or play farmers market bingo. Anything to engage with the seniors and get them excited about coming to your market. The third group would be a very general group, would be an urban population. So one of the best ways to target those in urban areas would be public transportation signage. And these are two photos of signage on a bus and at a bus stop for the Rochester Public Market. So as you can see, it's clear. It's talking about SNAP and talking about, let's see, oh yeah, I want to mention this too. They add a statistic there that is really eye-catching, I think. SNAP customers get 40% more with NY Fresh Connect at these markets. So really selling the market with some statistics. Another way to reach those in urban areas is to go into other businesses nearby the market and ask if you can set out your brochure or flyer, and then in exchange say, hey, do you have any, if it's a restaurant, could we put your menu out at our manager's booth? So when you approach other organizations, you want to really do it in the spirit of collaboration. So will you help us? We're happy to help you. Just checking how I'm doing on time. Okay, about 5 more minutes. So we've talked a lot about targeting households with children. So going to schools and daycares, again, asking, can we put out our posters and brochures, but maybe going a step further with a school and seeing if a teacher or a class might want to do a field trip to the farmers market, especially if it's held on a weekday. I've also talked a lot about Facebook groups, but it's worth mentioning here. One of the most popular type of Facebook groups is, there's usually in Syracuse, there'll be Syracuse moms or Syracuse parents. And even here in Syracuse, we have a lot of little towns. There's specific towns even that have parent pages. And this is where parents go and give each other ideas of things to do in the area. There's also Facebook groups for tourism or, just people that want to get out and explore their area. So explore these Facebook groups and then see if you can join them. And if you're going to join them, I caution you, don't just immediately start saying, come to the market, come to the market. You want to ease yourself into these groups. Maybe respond to a couple posts, wait a little bit, and then say, hey, I'm the market manager at XYZ Market. We'd love for you to come this week. The other nice thing about Facebook groups is recently they started allowing, it used to just be people that could join groups. Now they will let businesses and organizations. So if you don't want to reveal yourself, you can join, as long as they accept you, you can join the Facebook group as your farmers market, which is great. Pediatrician offices. We've heard a lot lately about doctors who are prescribing trips to the farmer's market. So that is something that maybe pediatrician offices might do for families with kids, is kind of maybe they would write a prescription to try and visit the market and eat a little healthier. And then finally, if you're in an area where there's a lot of homeschooling, these organizations are always looking for outings for their students, and that would be a great way to bring them to your market. Another big demographic group to target would be Generation Z and millennials. If you are near a college and university, you could run an ad if there's a school newspaper or radio station. These are much more affordable than your regular town newspapers and radio stations. You could always put up posters and flyers on campus too. Hand out flyers at concerts and events. Food truck rallies are really popular with these generations, and you know that they're into local food. So if you could show up with some flyers, that'd probably be really effective. And according to 2019 Pew Internet Research, the most used mediums with these younger generations are Instagram, Snapchat, and YouTube. Facebook is overall used more by, like in general, which is why I talk about Facebook a lot, but the younger generations are using Instagram, Snapchat, and YouTube more. So that's just a sneak peek of some ideas for reaching certain demographics, but there's more in the toolkit. And that is it. Just going to do a quick recap, 30-second recap. So we first started by talking about identifying who your current customers are, as well as how to play matchmaker to uncover new types of customers to reach. Then we focused on types of marketing messages that will resonate with different customers. And we talked about speaking in benefits supported by features. And finally, we looked at some of the marketing mediums you can use when trying to connect with specific demographics. So with that, let's see where we're at. Okay, 110. So I am all set here, and I just want to thank you for joining us on this first webinar about reversing the downward trend through effective and thoughtful marketing strategies. So I appreciate your attention, and I've enjoyed sharing this information. And now I would like to ask if anyone has ideas they would like to share or questions.
We do have a few questions.
Okay.
The first one wanted to know if this toolkit is the Marketing for Profit Tools for Success handbook on the Federation website, and it is not. That is a separate program, but I did send the link through the chat pod. I sent it out to everyone, so you should have that. If you don't see it, if you go to the Federation website under continuing programs or ongoing programs, I think it's actually called, you will see SARE Consumer Survey, and you'll find it there. Let's see, the next question. It may be worth mentioning that if one farmer accepts WIC or senior farmers market checks, all must accept them, or it is considered discrimination. Farmers generally receive a visit from their local Department of Ag and are certified to accept checks. And this is the case, at least in Connecticut. I have not heard that in New York, but you know, maybe it is. I can't say. Let's see. Again, we're being asked if there will be a recording, and yes, it will be located at the same link as the toolkit. And the only comment, other than the questions I just read, is thank you, Lindsay. We're really looking forward to the one next Friday.
Oh, great. Well, I am too. And last call for questions, and I love ideas. That's my favorite part of giving a webinar, is actually hearing what other markets are doing. So if anyone wants to type a message in and share maybe something that that's worked well for them, or maybe something that didn't work well. That's always appreciated. But if there's no other comments, then I just want to reiterate, thank you for joining us today, and please go download the toolkit. There are so many insights, not just from, Diane and I are in New York, but there's from Massachusetts, Maryland, other areas
Vermont.
contributed. Vermont, I was forgetting them, have contributed. So it's really a great picture of what markets are doing to overcome some of these trends. So.
Okay, with that, I'm not seeing any additional comments, so we'll go ahead and close out today. Oops, something just came in. Okay, we want to increase customers who use SNAP. Let's see. Anything other than what you mentioned that might help us get SNAP folks into our market?
There's so many things. One thing we did with some grant funds was to do posters, or I'm sorry, postcards, small postcards that looked like a coupon, but just said, bring this card and get a free tote bag. So again, we had grant funding, but the program was continued because a local hospital sponsored the cost of the tote bags. So we were able to hand out these postcards, and again, to the person from Connecticut, you do need to be really careful about discrimination. So you don't want to only give the tote bags to SNAP customers. However, if you bring the postcards for the free tote bag to the Department of Social Services or community organizations that work with SNAP customers, you're being strategic about who can get that offered. So it's not overtly discriminating against people that don't have SNAP. But if you bring a little card and we made these look really upbeat and fun and emphasized how fun it was to go to the market. No one wants to feel stigmatized for using benefits, and we really went out of our way on these postcards to say, your benefits are welcome. We want you at the market. Come say hello to the market manager for your free tote bag. And we redeemed a lot of these. So that program was really successful. I think in general, just making it seem fun and exciting to go to the market, and emphasizing that SNAP customers are welcome in your messaging is going to be really important.
We had another manager put in, or actually it was maybe a farmer. Our former market manager would put an ad in the Allegheny State Parks brochure and packet for campers. So each year they would get a lot of the campers showing up in their farmers market.
Ooh, that's a great idea. Yeah, that is a really great idea. I mean, especially for like RV parks, I know a lot of people, I believe, will stay for the season. So in the area that I worked on the grant in the Catskills region, there's a ton of people that come up from New York City for the summer, or on the weekends they have second homes. So finding those unique customers that may be seasonal, when you do your demographic research, and not only if you have them, but where are they? What neighborhoods do they live in? Or in the case of the Allegheny area, what RV or camping area do they go to? I think that's a great idea, because tourists can really supplement. And a lot of people, you say tourists, you think, oh, they'll never be back. Well, that's not true. I think of, where I go back every year to certain places. So if you can get them to your market once, maybe they come every, twice a season, and you can be part of their shopping. So don't ignore tourists. I think that's a great idea.
Another one says our local library got a small grant and used it to purchase coupons from the market and give them to people as rewards, and then they are able to shop at the farmers market. So maybe they went to a healthy family workshop, and as a reward for their attendance, they got a coupon to the market. I've seen that done in a lot of communities, and that was very successful.
Yeah, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'm really excited to talk about next Friday. I think we're going to go over like 8 or 10 different ways that you can get funding for these marketing initiatives. So I'm sure, like when I said newspapers and radio, a lot of people again were thinking this is out of my budget. But all it takes is one sponsor, like a hospital or a community organization or a grant, to purchase those tote bags or purchase or provide coupons so that the vendors are getting refunded. So vendors aren't donating anything to, and they don't have to donate anything. They're actually getting paid, to give away some of their product.
Okay, one last comment. Someone noted that when they register for the toolkit, it's not immediately available. That's true. It will be accessible for everyone that registers though, but you have to get an email back that opens it to you. So we do ask you to register so that we get your contact information so that we can report back to our funders. But yes, it will be accessible to everyone. So with that, I think we will go ahead and close out for today. I want to thank Lindsay. It was always very informative when Lindsay presents to us, and today was no exception. It was wonderful.
Thank you. I
So,
enjoy it. So I appreciate the opportunity.
okay, and we'll all be looking forward to listening to you again next Friday.
All right. Thanks, Diane.
Okay, bye-bye, everyone.